Pasensya na, matagal talagang internet. Hello? Are you still there?
Good morning po, Doc.
Yes.
Yes po.
Hello?
Good morning po, Doc.
Kaya wala akong madinig na ano. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Good morning po, Doc.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Good morning po, Doc.
Oo nga, hindi ko kayo nadidinig. Ano kaya ang nangyari? Bakit hindi ko kayo nadidinig? Hello? Kakaroon talaga ako ng... Bakit? Yeah. Ito ko lang sound. Okay, sige. Even if I cannot hear you for as long as you can hear me, we'll just continue, okay? Never mind if I cannot hear you, I'll just start my lecture. So one way na lang tayo, ha? So let me just share with you my slides. Can you see my slide? You when you answer, you just write on the chat box, okay? So can you now see my slide? You cannot see it yet. You cannot see it yet. Okay. Kita na. Yeah. Okay, kita na. All right. That's good. All right. So the first topic is all about anticoagulants. Now, we must understand that our blood should remain fluid. Okay? So the primary purpose of hemostasis is to finely regulate the process maintaining the fluidity of the blood and repair any vascular injury to limit blood loss. So yun yung main purpose ng hemostasis. Now we must remember, however, that there are times when the blood has to solidify in the form of clots. So they form what you call thrombus. So, and thrombosis can occur if there is endothelial injury. That is the most common. Whenever we have, say, an injured vessel, when you suddenly cut your skin and then blood comes out, so there is an injury to that means there is injury to the vessel. And in order for you not to die of bleeding, the body has to do something to prevent bleeding. And so it forms a clot to block the injured vessels. However, there are instances where in thrombosis or clot formation occur because of hypercoagulability and abnormal blood flow. So these occur even without an injury to any vessel. Now, hypercoagulability states occur in cases when there is a very high RBC or high WBC. So there is a form of hypercoagulable state, and then if there is abnormal blood flow, when the blood flow is too slow, no, or when there is atrial fibrillation or any abnormal rhythm in the heart, that would affect the flow of blood. That could also possibly lead to thrombus formation. Now, the process of hemostasis involves four major steps. The initial step is the localized vasoconstriction. So this is the initial reflex mechanism of the blood vessel in case of injury. So the exposed collagen on the surface of the vessel will lead to the release of a substance called endothelin, which is a potent vasoconstrictor. So that would be the initial step to reduce the blood flow to the injured vessel. And then this will be followed by platelet adhesion. Okay? So that is what you call the primary hemostasis. So the exposed collagen will lead to the release of what you call the von Willebrand factor, which will adhere the platelet on the surface of the blood vessel. Now, those platelets that adhere to the surface will release granules. So that's what you call platelet activation. They will release granules, and those granules contain thromboxane A2 that would activate other platelets. This will invite platelets to the area of injury, and they will consolidate to form the what you call the temporary hemostatic plug. This temporary hemostatic plug will try to block the injured vessel to prevent further bleeding. But of course, the hemostatic plug is only a temporary plug, so it has to become more permanent in the form of a fibrin clot. And this happens through what you call the process of secondary hemostasis. So the secondary hemostasis, as you all know in physiology, involves two processes, the extrinsic and the intrinsic pathway. So your extrinsic pathway, that's when there is tissue injury. So this will lead to activation of factor 7, and the activated factor 7 will activate the common factor 10 to activate the thrombin. Thrombin, which is the activated factor 2, will activate fibrinogen to form fibrin. And in the presence of activated factor 13, which is also activated by thrombin, will lead to the formation of a cross-linked fibrin polymer. Now, this is a more stable clot. Now, aside from the tissue, the extrinsic pathway, we also have the intrinsic pathway, which is initiated by the activation of factor 12 by kallikrein. So this kallikrein will activate factor 12, and the activated factor 12 will activate factor 11. And factor 11, okay, will activate, the activated factor 11 will activate factor 9. Then activated factor 9 together with activated factor 8 will activate factor 10 and so on. So ganun ha. So the end process is the formation of a cross-linked fibrin polymer. As you can see, thrombin is a powerful activated coagulant, um, coagulation factor. So thrombin has the power to activate factor 5, 7, 8, 11. Okay, it could even activate the resting endothelial cells. It could activate the resting platelet, so it's the thrombin that will also activate platelet. It can activate factor 13, and it can activate fibrinogen. So as you can see, thrombin can uh, affect, activate a lot of this coagulation factor. That is the reason why currently the more commonly used or the new anticoagulant act on this activated factor, thrombin. Yan ang naging target ngayon ng mga bagong anticoagulant, yung thrombin. Now, in as much as there are several factors that could activate the coagulation cascade, there are substances that requires that this secondary hemostasis be regulated. Otherwise, baka magbuo-buo na talaga yung mga dugo natin, and the formation of unregulated clot can be detrimental, no, to our patient. And therefore, this clotting has to be regulated. So inside our body, we have the antithrombin 3, which inactivate thrombin and other coagulation factors including 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now, the activity of these substances is enhanced by heparin-like molecules. Another regulator of hemostasis is protein C and S. These are all vitamin K dependent proteins. And once activated by thrombin, the activated protein C and S will inactivate factors 5 and activated factor 8. Another is a tissue factor pathway inhibitor. So this one tries to inhibit the tissue factor from being activated. So this, and then it will form a complex with factor 10A. So you see, it forms a quaternary complex with factor 10A, the tissue factor pathway inhibitor, activated factor 7A, and the tissue factor. This is the entire complex that ultimately will prevent the activation of factors 9 and the common factor 10. And then we also have plasmin. Plasmin is a peptide that cleaves fibrin, the two fibrin degradation product. So in essence, ang plasmin is thrombolytic. It lyses the formed clot. Kasi pag hindi na kailangan yung clot, dapat matunaw na siya at saka mawala na siya. Kasi otherwise, it will be an obstruction to blood flow, di ba? It will impede the blood flow. So, pag hindi na kailangan ng clot, dapat mawala na rin siya. So, this is the fibrinolytic pathway. So, you have plasminogen activator that will convert it into plasmin, and plasmin will degrade the fibrin polymer into fibrin degradation product. In the same manner, plasmin is also regulated. Kasi naman, pagka wala ng mga clot, dapat yung activity ng plasmin tumigil na rin. No? So there is also an antiplasmin that will inactivate this substance. So now we go to anticoagulants. Okay. Now, just would like to remind you, no, hindi lahat ng pag-uusapan natin ay anticoagulants. Kaya nga ito tinawag na anticoagulants eh. Kasi the target of these drugs are the clotting factors, the coagulation factors, no? So, pag hindi nag-a-act ang gamot sa coagulation factors, hindi mo siya tatawaging anticoagulant, no? So, ito mga anticoagulants, so kinokontra niya ang coagulation. Alright? So as we have just mentioned, meron tayong antithrombin 3. So, antithrombin 3. So, ano ang kalaban niya? Yung thrombin. No? So, the primary, its primary substrate is factor 2A. And then followed by 9, 10, 11, 12, including kallikrein, which is the substance necessary to convert factor 12, and also plasmin. So it has inhibitory activity, and its activity is enhanced by the presence of a catalyst known as a glycosaminoglycan or heparin. Okay? Now, drugs that could augment the function of antithrombin 3 serves as anticoagulant, because after all, antithrombin 3 is a natural anticoagulant, no? Ayan, meron talaga siyang ganong power. Now, heparin. Heparin is a sulfated mucopolysaccharide, and it binds to endothelial cell surfaces and plasma protein. Now, heparin doesn't inhibit directly any clotting factor. Okay, so its target is the antithrombin 3. Heparin accelerates the action of antithrombin 3. In the presence of heparin, the power of antithrombin 3 becomes 1,000-fold. So, ganun kalakas para nagkakaroon ng superpower ang antithrombin 3 in the presence of heparin. Okay? Now, however, there are two types of heparin. We have the unfractionated heparin, which is a large molecular weight. It is derived from bovine lung and porcine intestinal mucosa. And then we also have the low molecular weight heparin, which is derived from the unfractionated heparin via gel filtration chromatography. So, mas maliliit. Kumbaga yung low molecular weight heparin, parang tinadtad na unfractionated heparin. So, anong pagkakaiba? So, the unfractionated heparin being large is able to bind to antithrombin and accelerate the activity of antithrombin. So accelerating antithrombin means that that the primary target of antithrombin is the thrombin itself and all the other coagulation factor. So in essence, yung heparin, yung ability to inhibit the other clotting factor is indirect kasi ang trabaho niya lang ay palakasin yung antithrombin 3. Pero heparin, okay, because it's a large molecule, can also directly bind the thrombin. Okay? Meron siyang kaunting lakas to inhibit factor 2A. Pero in essence, its strength lies in the presence of antithrombin because after all, it is antithrombin that will do the work. It is just heparin that will empower antithrombin. Okay? As heparin can also, on the side, inhibit thrombin 3. Thrombin. The low molecular weight heparin, on the other hand, only accelerate the action of antithrombin 3 without binding to any of the coagulation factors. So talagang ang heparin, talagang suporta lang talaga siya sa antithrombin 3. Okay? So the unfractionated heparin, ito catalyzes the inactivation of both thrombin and factor 10A by antithrombin. So wag kang titigil dito sa inactivation of both thrombin and factor 10A. Mamamali ka. Dapat ituloy mo yan. Kasi dapat sa equation kasama yung antithrombin 3. Okay? Remember, it is antithrombin 3 that will do the work. It is just heparin that gives antithrombin extra power to do its work. The unfractionated heparin is used in the prophylaxis and treatment of venous thromboembolism. Ito yung kapag yung pasyente hindi siya masyadong gumagalaw, halimbawa mo bedridden, matagal nakaupo, so mabagal yung flow ng blood sa vein na nag-form siya ng clot, tapos itong mga clot na to ay it flows to the blood, nagiging silang emboli, no? And that could lead to other organs in the body. So commonly, pagka venous thromboembolism, ang unang punta nitong mga emboli, nandoon, natatrap sila sa lungs, no? So, pupunta sila doon. But it could travel to any part, any organs of the body. Now, unfractionated heparin can be used as a treatment kung meron na or prophylaxis to prevent this from happening. It can also be used as a prophylaxis in atrial fibrillation. So siguro naalala niyo pa, di ba? Sa atrial fibrillation, di ba sabi natin there is abnormal rhythm in cardiac contraction. So this lead to abnormal blood flow and the blood is at risk for forming thrombus, no? And also, it is used for treatment of disseminated intravascular coagulation. So this usually happens in severe sepsis when there is spontaneous formation of thrombus. So yeah, pwedeng ibigay yung unfractionated heparin. So it is usually given parenterally, either subcutaneously for prophylaxis or intravenously for treatment. And subcutaneously, the therapeutic efficacy is about 20 to 60 minutes. So it has a short half-life. No? So note that it is only given parenterally. And it does not require dosage adjustment in cases of renal failure kasi hindi doon yung daan ng kanyang metabolism. So how do we monitor the effect of heparin? So the effect of heparin is monitored by requesting for the activated partial thromboplastin time o yung PTT. So the activated partial thromboplastin time measures the activity of the intrinsic and the common pathway. Kasi ito, yung test na to, mini-measure niya kung gaano yung activity ng coagulation factors involved in the intrinsic pathway and in the common pathway. So kasama dyan yung activity ng prekallikrein, which is converted to kallikrein, and kallikrein is the one that converts or activate factor 12, di ba? Then yung mga fibrinogen, factors 12, 11, 9, 8, 2, 5, and 10. So yun yung mini-measure niya. So sabi natin, yung heparin kasi, anong target ng heparin? Antithrombin 3. So pag na-empower niya yung antithrombin 3, then antithrombin 3 can inhibit your activated factor 2 and all the rest of the other factor 10, di ba? Yung may mga ganon, factor 12. So those can be inhibited by heparin. Kaya ito yung mini-measure para ma-monitor yung effect ng heparin. So, pag binigyan natin ng heparin ng pasyente, we expect that this partial thromboplastin time will be prolonged. No? But, ang target natin is to prolong the APTT to 1.5 to 2.5 times the control value. Ay, kasi 'di ba gusto natin ma-prevent ang coagulation. So that means that the pro time will be prolonged kasi hindi magko-coagulate eh. Hahaba yung time. Pero hanggang dito lang. Because more than 2.5 times prolongation of the APTT can lead to bleeding. Hanggang ganyan lang. So, yun yung adverse effect ng unfractionated heparin, bleeding. Okay? So, we have to monitor our patient closely. So, by determining the APTT, you have to also control the dose. Other toxic effects could include allergy, alopecia, and with long-term therapy, it can lead to osteoporosis, spontaneous fractures, and mineralocorticoid deficiency. Itong letter E, hindi ko lang to hindi naman siya toxic effect tong letter E, yung acceleration of postprandial, accelerated clearing of postprandial lipemia. Hindi naman to toxic effect, no? Nakakababa siya ng konti ng lipids, pero saglit na saglit lang. Another adverse effect is the heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. No? So from the word itself, thrombocytopenia, so heparin can lead to diminished platelet, and that decreasing platelet could further lead to bleeding. Okay? And this is more common among surgical patients. Kasi this lead to a hypercoagulable state that occurs in about 1.1 to 4% of individuals given with unfractionated heparin. And usually it occurs within the 7 days. Kasi kahit na 7 days mo lang daw binigay yung heparin, pwedeng mag-develop na ng heparin-induced thrombocytopenia ang pasyente. So in essence, when we are using unfractionated heparin, we have to monitor not only the activated partial thromboplastin time, but we also have to request for platelet count. So these are the precautions when we are using heparin. We have to do platelet count frequently to monitor whether our patient is developing thrombocytopenia. Once platelet count is diminished, you have to stop heparin right away because you have to alert yourself that this patient might be developing HIT. Another is whenever you do your physical examination, you look for new thrombus. Because any new thrombus occurring in patient who is receiving heparin is likely to develop HIT. And patients who develop HIT requires a different anticoagulant. Most of the time, patients who develop HIT are given other anticoagulant in the form of a direct thrombin inhibitor. Okay. So these are all the contraindications in giving heparin. So isa lang ang common sa kanila, risk of bleeding. No? Obviously, you will not give heparin to patients who are allergic to heparin, those who have developed HIT, no? And those who have active bleeding. The rest, ito, yung mga hemophilia, severe hypertension. So, itong lahat yan, intracranial hemorrhage, threatened abortion, TB, lahat yan, they are at risk for developing bleeding. Kaya, you do not use heparin in all these cases. Okay? So how do we, now, in case a patient develop bleeding, what can we do? Of course, the very first thing you do is to discontinue the drug. And then you may give, okay, you may give the antagonist, which is protamine sulfate. So protamine is the direct antidote in case of heparin overdose, no? Yan yun yung ginagawa. Now, if the protamine is not able to reverse, then you can do plasmapheresis, or you can opt to give your platelet concentrate or cryoprecipitate. Now, the next is the low molecular weight heparin. So how is it different from unfractionated? Obviously, it has a low molecular weight, and it only acts by increasing the antithrombin's activity to inactivate factor 10A, which is the common factor. Now, example of low molecular weight heparin include dalteparin, enoxaparin, tinzaparin. As you can see, they have the same suffix as heparin. So, parin. Yun ang parin pala mga suffixes nila, no? Kasi pareho, galing sila sa heparin pa din, no? So, just like unfractionated, these molecular weight heparin are administered parenterally. So, they have more predictable dose response curve compared to unfractionated. Ibig sabihin, mas madali silang ma-monitor. Now, it does not require tight regulation and monitoring like the low molecular weight heparin. Now, its half-life is about 3 to 4 hours, and it is eliminated primarily through the kidneys. So in case of renal insufficiency or iatrogenic overdose, an anti-factor 10A can be used to monitor the low molecular weight heparin. Okay? So anti-factor 10A should be obtained 4 hours after administration of low molecular weight heparin. So yun lang ang titingnan natin, anti-factor 10A. So the adverse effect, of course, is still bleeding. Okay? Pero yung risk ng bleeding nagkakaiba sa dose, no? So, pagka ang dose ng low molecular weight ay for prophylaxis only, mas mababa yung bleeding tendency. Pero pagka mas mataas yung dose, yung therapeutic dose, so syempre yung risk ng bleeding tumataas. So, how do we reverse the adverse effect of low molecular weight? Halimbawa, nag-bleed yung pasyente. So, sabi, you can also use protamine. But the efficacy of protamine is low unfractionated heparin. Kasi sa low molecular weight heparin, yung reversal effect ng protamine is only 60%. Hindi siya ganun ka-effective. Kaya nga, in severe bleeding, kung low molecular weight heparin ang binigay, you can add cryoprecipitate or fresh frozen plasma. Okay? So those are the parenteral anticoagulant, yung heparin. Next, we go to oral anticoagulant, which is warfarin. Okay? Now, it is an anticoagulant, although it does not directly target the coagulation factor, just like heparin. Diba? Sabi natin, yung heparin, hindi naman siya talaga diretso sa coagulation factor, but it prevents this coagulation factor from being activated. Ang warfarin, ganun din. Ang target ng warfarin is the vitamin K epoxide reductase. And this vitamin K epoxide reductase is necessary for activating the vitamin K. Okay? So, yan ang role ng vitamin K epoxide reductase, to activate the inactive form of vitamin K. Once this vitamin K is activated, it is now able to activate the coagulation factors 2, 7, 9, and 10, what you call the vitamin K-dependent clotting factors. Those clotting factors will not be activated without vitamin K. So, yun yung mga kailangan ng vitamina, no? Yung 2, 7, 9, and 10. Now, there are several things that we need to remember when using warfarin, okay? Ang warfarin, although effective siya, it has a lot of complications when used. So, and we all know, and the most common adverse effect would still be bleeding because after all, it's an anticoagulant, no? So, ano yung mga mahirap in terms of warfarin usage? Now, warfarin, sabi natin, has genetic polymorphism. The use of warfarin involves some form of genetic polymorph, no, in for the patient. Kasi may mga pasyente tayo na yung sinabi natin, naalala nyo sa genetic polymorphism. There are patients who have genetic polymorph in the expression of vitamin K epoxide reductase. So the gene responsible for the expression of this enzyme is the BICOR-C1 gene. At sabi natin, di ba, meron tayong genetic polymorph involving this gene that can make the patient sensitive or insensitive to the effect of warfarin. Nagkakaroon tayo ng warfarin insensitivity and warfarin sensitivity because of that gene. Another thing, ang warfarin's effect is not expected to occur immediately. It has a delayed onset of action, primarily because the effect of warfarin will start once the preformed activated factor has already been degraded. Because remember, before warfarin, you have the activated factors 2, 7, 9, and 10. Activated factors 2, 7, 9, and 10 have these different half-lives. So you can see yung activated factor 2 has a half-life of about 60 hours. So for the warfarin's full effect to happen, okay, this activated factor 2 has to be degraded in the system. Okay? Yung factor 7 is the one with the shortest half-life. No? So, siya yung unang-unang mawawala. Kasi pag naubos na siya, wala nang kapalit na activated factor 7 kasi wala nang vitamin K. Okay? In the same manner, di ba, protein CNS is also vitamin K dependent factor. Although protein CNS is an anticoagulant. No, meron siyang anticoagulant siya kasi regulator siya, di ba? Sabi natin. So, pagka wala kang vitamin K, hindi ma-activate yung protein CNS. So, the initial effect of warfarin is prothrombotic siya. Kasi ito short half-life lang to eh. So, initially prothrombotic siya. Kaya ang warfarin hindi siya ibinibigay ng agad-agad. Usually it is given together with heparin initially. Okay? So yan. Now, it is used for long-term anticoagulation kasi 'di ba pagka heparin ang pasyente o low molecular weight heparin hindi parating parenteral 'yon. So some patients would not want to have parenteral anticoagulation. Ano to parang ano lang parang insulin kapag mga unfractionated o low molecular weight heparin kasi subcutaneous na subcutaneous. So ayaw naman ng pasyente 'yon kung meron ka namang oral counterpart which is warfarin. So karaniwan yung warfarin is given for long-term anticoagulation to prevent thrombotic event. No? For patients who are at high risk, yung merong atrial fibrillation, yung merong mga artificial valve, no? So sila, kailangan nila ng long-term anticoagulation. So how do we monitor the effect of warfarin? Kung yung heparin, kailangan natin ng activated partial thromboplastin time para ma-check. Kasi sabi natin, yung heparin, antithrombin 3, so tapos yung intrinsic pathway ang ano niya, ang concern niya. So, APTT ang ginagamit natin to monitor the effect of heparin. While prothrombin time is used to monitor the effect of warfarin. Kasi yung prothrombin time, itong PT, itong prothrombin, it only measures factors 1, factor 2, factor 5, 7, and 10. Okay? So, yun yung kanyang chine-check, prothrombin time. So prothrombin time is usually expressed in INR, which is the ratio of the patient's pro time over the lab standard P. Kaya ito, pwedeng magkaiba-iba yung INR ng mga iba-ibang laboratory kasi siyempre, iba-iba yung kanilang standard depende doon sa machine na ginagamit nila. Okay? So, merong sariling INR ang bawat ospital. Now, the target INR for warfarin is about 2 to 3. 2 to 3. Pagka mas maikli sa 2 to 3, ibig sabihin kulang yung dose. Pagka more than 3, yung risk na pasyente mag-bleed mataas. Kaya kailangan iayos mo yung dose. Okay? Yan. So, warfarin is a racemic mixture of R and S stereoisomer. So, dalawa yung isomers ng warfarin. So, yung R and S. Pero yung kanyang ability to inhibit the vitamin K epoxide reductase is basically in the S isomer. Okay? Now, these two isomers are metabolized by cytochrome P450 enzyme. While the S isomer is metabolized by CYP2C9, the R isomer is CYP3A4 and CYP1A2. And again, in genetic polymorphism, we've discussed about genetic polymorphism in the genes that express these enzymes, di ba? Pero mas importante dito yung effect ng polymorphism sa CYP2C9. So, di ba yung CYP2C9 yun naman ang magdedetermine kung rapid or slow metabolizer ang pasyente. So, kung rapid metabolizer ang pasyente na may metabolize kaagad niya yung S-warfarin, therefore, yung effect ng warfarin nagdi-diminish. In the same manner, kapag ka naman siya ay slow metabolizer, even the therapeutic dose of warfarin could have an exaggerated effect kasi mapoprolong yung kanyang action. Okay? So, yun. So, the CYP2C9 star 1 allele is the wild type. Again, the more important CYP enzyme would be the CYP enzyme that metabolizes the S isomer, which is CYP2C9. Okay? Yan. Now, aside from genetic polymorph, ang isa pang mahirap with warfarin is the drug-drug interaction and even food-drug interaction. Cholestyramine, which is a drug for cholesterol. Barbiturates, carbamazepine, phenytoin, these are drugs for seizures. And rifampin, this is an anti-TB drug. The cholestyramine inhibit warfarin. So, it inhibit warfarin absorption. So, hindi mo siya pwedeng pagsabay dito. Kasi pagka sinabay mo sa cholestyramine ang warfarin, hindi siya ma-absorb, no? So, in essence, matidiminish yung effect ng warfarin. Ngayon, ito mga barbiturates, carbamazepine, phenytoin, they accelerate the effect of warfarin. They accelerate warfarin metabolism rather. So, mabilis yung metabolism ng warfarin, so yung effect ng warfarin nagde-diminish. Now, yung reduced vitamin K, pagka binigyan mo ng reduced vitamin K ang pasyente, nawawala na yung effect ng warfarin. Kasi remember, yung warfarin's target is the vitamin K epoxide reductase. The purpose of that enzyme is to activate vitamin K. Eh, pag binigyan mo na ng activated vitamin K, baliwala na yung effect ng warfarin. Now, there are also drugs that can enhance warfarin's anticoagulant effect like chloral hydrate. Ito naman, ang chloral hydrate, it enhances warfarin's anticoagulant effect by displacing the binding of warfarin to plasma protein. Amiodarone, na-discuss na sa inyo to, anti-arrhythmic agent. Yung clopidogrel, which is anti-platelet, alcohol, no? Ito mga anti-fluconazole, this is antifungal. Fluoxetine, this is an antidepressant. Metronidazole, sulfamethoxazole, mga antimicrobials. They decrease warfarin metabolism. So, pag pinabagal mo yung metabolism ng warfarin, lalong hahaba yung effect ng warfarin sa katawan. And that could lead to bleeding. Other broad-spectrum antibiotics can eliminate the bacteria in the GI tract, thus reducing the availability of vitamin K in the GI. O, di lalong konti na nga lang yung vitamin K, inhibit ng warfarin yung activation, o, diba? So, lalong magiging malala yung effect ng warfarin. Okay? Ayan. Good. Sabi niya, ma'am, kailangan po ba natin itong malaman? Okay. Ang kailangan nyo lang alamin ay yung para sa mga gamot na na-discuss na sa inyo. No? Hindi pa na-discuss ito sa inyo, so good to know. Ito mga to, hindi pa na-discuss sa inyo, good to know. Ito, vitamin K, dinidiscuss ko na, so kasama to sa dapat nyong alamin. Dito, chloral hydrate, hindi nyo pa na-discuss, so okay, good to know. Pero ang amiodarone, na-discuss na sa inyo, so dapat alam nyo kung ano ang interaction yan with warfarin. Ang mga antibiotics sa ngayon, hindi nyo pa to alam. No? Pero dahil broad spectrum antibiotics naman siya, wala namang specific antibiotic, maganda, dapat alam din natin. Okay? Yan. May hint na. So ano ba ang adverse effect ng warfarin? Anong ayaw natin? Hemorrhage. Just like yung heparin, pwede mag-bleed yung pasyente. No? So, kasi remember that initially, initial during the initiation of warfarin, pwedeng ma-inhibit ang protein CNS, kaya pwedeng magkaroon pa ng thrombosis. Kaya hindi mo to binibigay, again, as I've said, you do not start warfarin without first initiating the patient on parenteral anticoagulant. Karaniwan kasi ang ginagawa dyan is, ang pasyente ini-start sa heparin, parenteral. Pagkatapos, isi-shift na siya sa oral. So, bago shift ang parenteral heparin to warfarin, kailangan meron munang tinatawag na overlap. And it takes about 48 to 72 hours overlap of heparin and warfarin. Kasi, hindi ka naman matakot na, sobrang anticoagulation, baka mag-bleed. Kasi yung warfarin, sabi ko nga sa inyo, delayed ang effect. Ang tagal pang maubos ng mga preformed activated clotting factors na 2, 7, 9, and 10. So, okay lang na meron ka ng heparin muna kasi hindi pa naman mag-i-effect agad. No? So, kailangan about 3 days na overlap before you remove the heparin and then just continue with warfarin. At saka yun nga, para ma-prevent yung prothrombotic initial effect ng warfarin. Okay? Now, warfarin can also cause hemorrhagic disorders in the fetus, kaya hindi yan binibigay sa mga buntis. And it may also cause cutaneous necrosis, but this is just a rare adverse effect. Now, what are the risk factors for warfarin-related hemorrhage? Ibig sabihin, who are at risk for bleeding because of warfarin? Yung mga matatanda, advanced age, so mga senior citizen. So, medyo very prone sila sa bleeding that may be caused by warfarin. Serious comorbidities like yung mga may cancer, may chronic kidney disease, may liver dysfunction, arterial hypertension, risky rin na gamitin ng warfarin sa kanila kasi pwedeng mag-hemorrhage. Yung mga alcohol abuser, bakit? Kasi 'di ba yung liver nila pwedeng maging cirrhotic and that will affect the ability of the liver to produce the clotting factor. So, yung risk na bleeding, mataas na sa kanya from the very beginning. And concomitant use of antiplatelet or other drugs. So, ang ibig bang sabihin, huwag natin itong ibibigay sa mga pasyenteng ito? Hindi. Pwede mo pa rin ibigay, pero mag-iingat tayo. Okay? So, use warfarin at the slowest possible therapeutic dose and close monitoring would be warranted. So you always you always think ahead nagbibigay ka ng ganito. Alam mo, ang mga doktor, pati ang mga sa advance mag-isip dapat. Hindi po pwede yung mag-iisip ka lang pagka ayun na, dyan ang problema. Hindi. Kaya tinuturo sa inyo itong mga warfare, yung mga risk factors, sinasabi sa inyo yung adverse effects, importante yun. Para alam nyo na ito yung pwedeng mangyari sa pasyente pag hindi ka naging maingat sa paggamit ng gamot. No? What are the things that you should do? What are the precautionary measures that you have to observe so that your patient will not be put at a risk. No? You wouldn't want your patient to develop all the adverse effect. Or worse, you do not want your patient to die because of the adverse effect. Kailangan alam natin to. Tandaan nyo mga beha, kailangan advance kang mag-isip. No? Pero hindi advance mag-isip para maging anxious ka. advance ka mag-isip para alert ka, no? Pwedeng mangyari sa pasyente and alam mo yung dapat na i-monitor. Okay? So, what will happen if for example, nag-bleed yung pasyente because of warfarin? So, siyempre, ang kauna-unahan mong gagawin, stop mo yung gamot. Okay? And administer the oral or parenteral vitamin K1. Itong parenteral vitamin K1 na ito, active vitamin K na to. So, kung activated vitamin K na yan, diretso na yan sa clotting factor. So, bibigyan niya na ng vitamina yung 2, 7, 9, and 10, ma-activate na yon. Okay? So, syempre, pagka mataas ang bleeding ng pasyente, you can opt to add the fresh frozen plasma kasi yung mga fresh frozen plasma, those contains the coagulation factors, no? Or you can opt to give prothrombin complex concentrate kung available or recombinant factor 7A. Okay? Ayan. Now, kung gusto mo mabilis na mabilis, pwede kang magbigay ng vitamin K together with prothrombin complex or ito, recombinant factor 7A. Sa totoo lang kasi hindi ako sure kung meron tayong recombinant factor 7A. Pero karaniwan kasi dito, bibigay na lang vitamin K at fresh frozen plasma. O kaya, wala tayong cryoprecipitate. Yan. Now, warfarin. Teratogenic effects include, so it can affect the bone and cartilage, nasal hypoplasia, and stifled appearance to the ends of the long bones. Okay? So nakita nyo dyan, nasal hypoplasia, milit yung ilong. Pero tandaan nyo, nakita nyo sa exam, sa question ko, these are the adverse effects of warfarin. 1, bleeding. 2, nasal hypoplasia. C, halimbawa mo, both, di ba? So, ang correct answer doon is bleeding lang. Kasi ito, teratogenic effect ito. No? Kapag sinabi mong teratogenic, iba naman yung sa direct adverse effect. So, pagka teratogenic, hindi ito sa lahat ng populasyon na bibigyan mo ng warfarin. Ito lang ay nangyayari kapag ang warfarin ay ibinigay sa nagbubuntis. Di ba? Sa buntis. Tapos yung baby niya, pwedeng magkaroon ng nasal hypoplasia. So, hindi mo sasabihin na nag-warfarin ang lola mo, binigyan ng warfarin ang lola mo, biglang liliit yung ilong. Hindi totoo yun, hindi yun mangyayari. Kasi nasal hypoplasia only occur in the fetus. Okay? Liwanag yan baka kasi malito kayo. Alam mo naman, pagka during examination, pagka ang question na misinterpret, diba? Ayan. Siguro yun nangyari sa inyo sa midterms, medyo nahirapan kayo sa midterms, baba ang passing rate natin. Hindi ko alam kung bakit. Pero wala naman akong kinalaman sa midterms nyo. Okay? Next. So, another anticoagulant, we have the factor 10A inhibitor. Bakit nga naman ba hindi na lang sa factor 10A tayo mag-zero in, di ba? Sabi ng mga bagong mga innovations dyan. Kasi bakit natin epektuhan pa yung factor 7, factor 12 na yan? Dito lang tayo sa common pathway kasi pag ininhibit mo itong common pathway, hindi na magpo-proceed pa baba. Oo nga naman. Kasi without the activation of factor 10, hindi ma-activate yung prothrombin. Hindi siya magiging thrombin, di ba? So, ito na ngayon yon. May makabago. Na nag-aaral ako, ang available pa lang na factor 10A inhibitor is fondaparinux. Yan, fondaparinux. Tapos, ito na yung bago, yung idraparinux. Tapos, mas bago pa yung idra, bio, paparinux. Di ba? Ang hirap alalahanin, Idra, bio, paparinux. Di ba? So, yung mga mahirap pronounce na ganyan at napakahaba niyan, hindi ko siya pagbibigyan ng mahabang panahon para i-type sa questions naman ninyo, no? So, ibig sabihin, i-park na lang natin si Hydra, Biotrap, Parinux, whatever. Ang pwede nating isipin at dapat yung maalala is the Fonda Parinux kasi ito yung pinakauna and yung bago na Hydra, Parinux. So, dito, yung factor 10A inhibitors ay nahahati sa dalawa. We have the direct and indirect. Itong indirect, ito, ang X niya, tinan mo may X siya. Ang ibig sabihin ng X, kasi factor 10. Diba? X yan, 10. So, yan. Kaya, yung pangalan niya may X. To tell us that it inhibits factor 10A. Okay? Yan. Ito namang direct factor 10A inhibitors nahati rin sa dalawa, oral and parenteral. So, the parenteral direct is tamiksaban. Tapos yung oral direct is rivaroxaban, apisaban, edoxaban. Ito, rivaroxaban yan. Hindi yan siban, ha? Saban. Kasi dapat, mali na naman kasi yung spelling. Correct naman. Ay! Yan. So, dapat rivaroxaban. Kasi direct siya eh. Direct siya sa 10A. Kaya nga yan 10A. Kaya XA yan eh. XA. Ayaw pa niya mag-edit. Oh. Anyway, ayaw niya mag-edit. Bahala siya. Balik na natin. Yun. Ayaw pa rin niya. Yun. Ayan. Yan. Save natin. So, pagka direct thrombin inhibitor, ang target niya talaga is yung activated factor 10A. Kaya XA. Kaya yung pangalan niya parating may XA. 10A inhibitors. Okay? Yan. Ito naman, indirect kasi siya. Kaya nandun lang yung X sa dulo. Wala siyang A. Indirect siya. Bakit siya indirect? Kaya kasi itong indirect 10A inhibitor, hindi siya nag-inhibit directly ng 10A. Hindi katulad nito mga apisaban, rivaroxaban. Pag binigay mo, diretso yan sa 10A. Diyan siya magmamano, tapos inhibit niya. Itong fondaparinux, hindi eh. Meron pa siyang dinadaanan. Hindi siya dumidiretso sa 10A. At ang dinadaanan ng mamaya, sige. Mamaya natin ikwento yung si fondaparinux, yung indirect. So, ito yung mga oral direct. Ayan sila. So, they have rapid onset of action and they have shorter half-life. So, ang maganda nito, oral na siya. Hindi katulad ng warfarin. Although ang warfarin oral. Pero anong kagandahan nito? Pag tinake mo itong oral factor 10A inhibitor, agad yung effect. Hindi katulad ng warfarin. Matagal pa bago mag-epekto, no? So, mga 72 hours pa yung warfarin bago mo makita yung full effect ng warfarin. Ito, dire-diretso, na agad. Yan. No? Now, so ito, yung direct thrombin, direct 10A inhibitors bind to the active site of factor 10A. So inhibiting factor 10A will subsequently inhibit prothrombinase, which will activate your factor 2. Diba? Now, yung indirect 10A inhibitors, bakit siya indirect? Kasi bago siya umakto sa factor 10A, makikibind muna siya with antithrombin 3. O parang heparin, ano? Oo, parang heparin. So ito, it binds with antithrombin 3. And once na mag-bind siya kay antithrombin 3, hindi naman si antithrombin 3 ang magkakaroon ng power dito. Remember, ang pagkakaiba ng indirect 10A inhibitors at saka heparin, although they both bind to antithrombin 3, ang heparin nagbibigay ng power sa antithrombin 3. Ito naman, itong indirect 10A inhibitor, yung antithrombin 3, ang magkukos for it to change in form, making it a powerful inhibitor of factor 10A. Kumbaga, i-impart ng antithrombin 3 sa factor 10A inhibitor yung konting power para ma-inhibit yung factor 10A. Okay? Wala siyang effect on factor 2A. Maliwanag. So, dun tayo. Ayan na, yung fondaparinux. Di ba? Inux. Indirect. Di ba? Indirect inhibitor of factor 10A. So, kailangan muna kasi si fondaparinux magbago ng anyo. And for it to change its configuration or conformation, it has to first go to antithrombin 3. Okay? Now, fondaparinux is subcutaneously given. Ayan. So, anong uses ng factor 10A inhibitors? Yun din, kung ano yung gamit ng mga heparin, no, di ba? Tsaka ng warfarin for prophylaxis and treatment of venous thromboembolism, for prophylaxis of embolic disease in non-valvular atrial fibrillation, and ito, yung factor 10A could be a very good alternative uh, for heparin in case of HIT. Diba? Now, sabi natin, paano mo i-monitor yung effect ng factor 10A? Kung ang heparin ay APTT, kung ang warfarin ay PT, ang factor 10A wala. There's no specific lab parameter to monitor its anticoagulant effect. Although it can briefly prolong the activated partial thromboplastin time and PT. After all, 10 is yung factor 10A, yun yung common pathway, di ba? No. So, pero sabi nga, yung supratherapeutic concentration lang ng TNA inhibitor associated with dose-dependent increase in ProTime. Oo. Hindi yan iinom ng supratherapeutic, no? Kung nagpapakamatay ka, yan ang iinumin mo. Pagka mahal-mahal naman po ng factor 10A, magsisuicide ka lang, mag-ano ka pa, ano? Gagastos ka pa ng malaki. So, wag na yan, no? So, sa clinic, we do not usually give the supratherapeutic concentration. Takot mo lang na mag-bleed yung pasyente, di ba? Yan. So, Fantaparinox is primarily eliminated and changed in the urine. It is not for patients with renal insufficiency because it can lead to higher risk for bleeding. So, how do we reverse? If, for example, nariyan na, nag-bleed yung pasyente, kasi naman, anticoagulant sila, nandun parati yung risk ng bleeding. So, for reversal of factor 10A, we can give Ondexanet alpha, which is the active substance of Ondexia, a recombinant protein that acts as a decoy for the direct oral factor 10A inhibitors, apisaban and rivaroxaban. Kumbaga, itong Ondexanet alpha, it is the one that binds to apisaban and rivaroxaban, preventing them from binding with factor 10A. So, it neutralizes the anticoagulant effect of factor 10A inhibitors. Okay? Yan. Now, next are the direct thrombin inhibitor. Ito naman, dumiretso na sa activated factor 2. So, nag-factor 10, tapos factor 2. So, this bind to the active site of thrombin, which is the activated factor 2. So, examples of these include hirudin, bivalirudin, ergatroban, and melagatran. Ito naman, itong mga makabagong parenteral direct thrombin inhibitor, makikita mo, ang pangalan nila may TR. TR, for thrombin. Di ba? Argatroban, melagatran, yan. Ganyan siya. Okay? Yan. So, hirudin is a specific irreversible thrombin inhibitor and it is derived from leech saliva. Alam niyo yung leech? Yung mga linta. Oo. So, it is available in recombinant form as lepyridine. So, nag-recombinant sila. Pero nga lang, yung lepyridine ay hindi na available sa market. Kaya ito, pinalitan na nito mga TR, yung mga argatroban. So, this is a small molecule thrombin inhibitor. So, it inhibits basically the action of thrombin. At nakita nyo yung special slide dedicated for thrombin. Nakita nyo yung power ng thrombin. No? It is the most powerful of all the coagulation factors. So, argatroban will bind to thrombin. So, it inhibits activated factor 2A. This is used in patients with HIT, with or without thrombosis and coronary angioplasty. And it has a short half-life, so it may be given continuous IV infusion. And then you can just monitor the APTT. Tapos yung oral direct is the bigatran. Ayun, meron din siyang TR, no? So it has a more predictable pharmacokinetic and bioavailability. So it is used for routine coagulation monitoring is not necessary. So mas safe daw siya. Ayan. Okay. Now the bigatran is also an oral factor 2A inhibitor. So for prevention of stroke and systemic embolism. Again, no monitoring is required. But TT and thrombin can be used as an estimate of its effect. Again, just like all the other anticoagulants, the primary toxicity is bleeding. Okay? So my slides here shows the different, show you the table that summarizes the table of anticoagulants, their laboratory monitoring, adverse effect, and potential reversal agents. So ito, importante itong slide na yan. Okay? Ayan. Dapat alam yan, memorizein yan, alam na. Okay? Ayan. Tapos, ito naman, slide na to, it just shows you the target of the different anticoagulant and their coagulation factors. Okay? Now we go to thrombolytics. Stop muna tayo dito. So, ay mali pala. Meron ba kayong tanong? Dali lang ha. Yes. I will upload the PowerPoint in the Moodle. Don't worry. Okay? I will upload it. Okay? Dali lang. Have questions? Clarification so far? Madali lang ano kasi konti-konti pa lang naman yung mga gamot. Oo. Okay. Now we go to thrombolytic agent. Nasaan ba yun? Dali lang ha. Okay. Now we go to the thrombolytic agent. So, okay. So, sabi natin ang mga thrombolytic or fibrinolytic, na? Kasi 'di ba yung thrombus may mga fibrin, 'di ba? Galing sa fibrin. So, kaya fibrinolytic din siya. No? Pero thrombus yung nabubuo niya kaya thrombolytic, 'di ba? So, sabi natin kanina sa regulation ng hemostasis, kailangan pag hindi na if the clot is no longer needed or if the clot is no longer necessary or it can obstruct blood flow, it has to be removed. And in our body, we have plasminogen, which can be activated by various stimuli to become plasmin. Okay? Plasmin is the activated form of plasminogen. And the role of plasmin, as I have just mentioned a while ago, is to degrade fibrinogen and fibrin clot. Now, there are several fibrinolytic drugs, no? So they convert the inactive zymogen, which is the plasminogen, to the active protease, which is plasmin. Now, plasmin is non-specific. It can degrade fibrin or digest the fibrin to their fibrin degradation product. It does not qualify whether the clot is newly formed or has been there for quite some time. So it has the potential to dissolve even the non-pathologic thrombi. Kumbaga yung nagkaroon ng thrombus kasi kailangan ng katawan dahil merong nire-repair na vascular injury. Kaya niya rin yung tunawin. So yun yung non-pathologic. Yung mga pathologic thrombi, yung mga nag-obstruct sa blood flow na hindi naman necessary, kaya niya rin tunawin. So hindi niya kayang isipin kung sino yung pathologic thrombi at saka yung physiologic thrombi. So, yun ang problema nitong nitong plasmin na to. Okay? And therefore, if this plasmin is unregulated, the adverse effect is also bleeding. First, we have streptokinase. Streptokinase is a fibrinolytic drug that is derived from beta-hemolytic streptococci. Okay? So, it forms a stable 1-to-1 complex with plasminogen. Una muna ha, makikipag-bind muna siya with plasminogen 2. And this complex, yan na ngayon, yung complex na yan, ang mag-cleave with, that will cleave the other plasminogen molecules to plasmin. Okay? So, itong streptokinase, hindi siya diretso. Na? Kailangan makipag-bind muna with plasminogen in order for it to activate the other plasminogen molecules to plasmin. Yan. Now, since streptokinase is derived from bacteria, it can elicit antigenic responses in human. Yan ang problema. Pwede magkaroon ng hypersensitivity reaction. Okay? And its thrombolytic effect is non-specific and can also lead to systemic fibrinolysis. Yun ang problema, yung systemic fibrinolysis that could lead to bleeding. Streptokinase is used for treatment of ST-elevated MI and life-threatening pulmonary embolism. Dahil allergenic yung streptokinase, ito na yung urokinase which is derived from human kidney. Okay? Ito naman, hindi niya kailangan mag-form ng complex. Diretso na siya. It directly convert plasminogen to active plasmin. And then we have the recombinant tissue plasminogen activator. So sabi natin, sa katawan natin, meron tayo talagang tissue plasminogen activator. Now, this recombinant tissue plasminogen activator is produced by the human endothelial cells. Dahil galing sa human endothelial cells, hindi siya ganun ka-antigenic. Ang maganda dito, it only binds to newly formed or fresh thrombi. So, doon siya mas na-attract sa mga fresh thrombi. And thus, causing fibrinolysis at the side of the thrombus. And once bound to the fresh thrombus, it will change and render it a potent activator of plasminogen. Now, ang ano nito, it's a poor activator of plasminogen in the absence of fibrin binding. So, kung wala naman din daw fibrin, wala na, ayaw na niya. Okay? So, generically, recombinant tissue plasminogen activator are referred to as alteplase. May mga ganyan sa pangalan nila. So, this is used to recanalize occluded coronary arteries. Kaya nga, di ba, nagkaroon ng MI kasi na-occlude yung coronary artery. So, bibigyan mo nito para matunaw yon. So, however, just like the other fibrinolytic drugs, they can generate systemic lytic state. And thus cause bleeding. So, this is not used for patients who have had recent hemorrhagic stroke. Kasi nga naman, kakatapos lang ng hemorrhagic stroke, bibigyan mo niya, di nag-bleed lalo yung pasyente. No? So, it's used for ST-elevated MI, life-threatening pulmonary embolism, acute ischemic. Acute ischemic. Kasi pagka ischemic stroke, ang ibig sabihin nito, na stroke yung pasyente kasi merong nakabarang thrombus doon sa cerebral vessels. Pagka hemorrhagic, pumutok yung ugat. Kaya hemorrhagic. Ito, hindi mo bibigyan ito kasi lalo magbi-bleed yan, di ba? Hindi magbubuo ng clot yan. Pero kung acute ischemic stroke, dahil meron kang thrombus or emboli na nag-occlude ng cerebral vessel, di bigyan mo nito para matunaw kaagad yung clot na yon para ma-restore mo yung function ng brain. To restore the function of that particular part of the brain. Yan. So, example of recombinant tissue plasminogen activator include tenecteplase, di ba? Teplase. So, it has greater fibrin specificity and more resistant to plasminogen activator inhibitor. So, ibig sabihin, mahaba yung half-life niya. Same thing with reteplase, no? Same efficacy and adverse effects like streptokinase and TPA, but it has longer half-life. Okay, so doon na tapos yun anticoagulant, yung ating fibrinolytics, dyan na natapos. Ngayon, itong yung mga anticoagulants natin, dapat ma-check din, no? So, pagka nasobrahan ka ng bigay ng anticoagulant, just like pagka heparin ang nasobrahan mo, then you can give protamine because this is a chemical antagonist of heparin. Pagka naman aproteinin, ano naman to? It's a naturally occurring polypeptide. Inhibitor naman to ng plasmin, ng TPA, at saka ng thrombin. So, ito naman, it promote clot stabilization. Right. So, ito naman, tapos, meron din tayong ito, aminocaproic and tranexamic acid. Ang tranexamic acid, for once upon a time, nagpabunot ka ng bagang, di ba? Nung nagpabunot ka ng ngipin, nagdugo ng dugo yung ngipin mo, kaya binigyan ka ng tranexamic acid. Di ba? Pampatigil ng pagdudugo to. Same thing with aminocaproic acid. So, this bind and inhibit plasminogen. Kaya, hindi makaka-form ng plasmin. Kaya, yung katawan natin, they can form clot. So, this is used to reduce perioperative bleeding during coronary artery bypass and for patients who have severe bleeding. Pwede kang magbigay niyan. Alright. So, tayo doon, ito na yung last group of drugs, yung anti-platelets. So, sabi natin, sa process ng hemostasis, yung second step is the formation of a temporary platelet plug. Sabi natin, platelet plug occur or develop once the exposed collagen release the von Willebrand factor. So, this von Willebrand factor acts as a glue to attach the platelets to the exposed collagen in the subendothelium. So, this will form this von Willebrand factor attaches to the GP1B receptor found on the surface of the platelet. So, they form what you call the GP1B von Willebrand factor collagen complex. Ayan, magdidikit sila. GP1B from the platelet, von Willebrand factor as a glue to the collagen at the subendothelial layer of the blood vessel. Ayan na siya. Ayan. Okay? Nakadikit na yung mga platelet. Dinikit na ng von Willebrand. Now, these platelets, once they adhere the subendothelial layer, they release the granules, and these granules will release substances that will activate other platelets and invite this platelet to the site of injury. So we have the ADP, epinephrine, and collagen. These are all substances that activate the platelet membrane phospholipase A. So nakita mo, di ba, ito yung collagen, ito yung von Willebrand factor, ito yung platelet. So yung collagen in itself is enough to activate yung mga platelets. Tapos yung release ng epinephrine, which is our neurotransmitter, will also activate the platelet. And then yung adenosine pathway. So yan, ma-activate yan. So this will lead to the release of phospholipase A2 from the membrane of the platelet. Anong role ng phospholipase A2? It is an enzyme that converts the phospholipid layer in the cell membrane, okay? That will, so it will convert the phospholipid and release arachidonic acid. Phospholipase. So, ang substrate niya is the phospholipid liberating arachidonic acid. Now, this arachidonic acid is a substrate of another enzyme, which is the cyclooxygenase enzyme. That will convert arachidonic acid to thromboxane A2. Now, thromboxane A2 is a powerful vasoconstrictor. In the same way, it stimulates other platelets to release their granules. Pag na-release yung granules, ito na siya, magre-release siya ng granules. So, marirelease pa yung mga substances na to. Yan, yung thromboxane, yan, marirelease pa yan. So, also, the activation of the thromboxane receptor, the platelet surface, will cause this cascade ultimately activating the phospholipase. Yun nga sinabi natin, mako-convert yung phospholipid to arachidonic acid. Also that this phospholipid will activate the BP2B3A receptor, another receptor that can attach to fibrinogen. Okay? So itong GP2B3A receptor on the surface of the platelet binds to fibrinogen. And other platelets with the same activated receptor can bind to fibrinogen. So magdidikit-dikit sila through the fibrinogen, and that is what you now call platelet aggregation. So ito na mangyayari. So merong adhesion by the von Willebrand factor and aggregation of platelets through the GP2B3A collagen complex interaction. Ayan siya. So yan na magpo-form yung primary hemostatic plug. Ayan. So, ano-ano ngayon yung mga antiplatelet? So, di ba, ang role ng antiplatelet is to prevent platelet aggregation and the formation of a platelet plug. So, we have the COX inhibitors, phosphodiesterase inhibitors, ADP, receptor pathway inhibitors, and the GP2B3A antagonists. So first we have the COX inhibitor. Isa lang naman to yung aspirin. Although, yung ibang NSAID, meron din siyang ganyang capacity. Pero yung aspirin ang pinaka-ginagamit to prevent platelet aggregation. So ito yung tinatawag mong anti-platelet. So aspirin inhibit the enzyme COX. Sabi natin, anong role ng COX? It is the one that converts arachidonic acid to prostaglandin and thromboxane A2. So, yung prostaglandin is a precursor ng prostacyclin and thromboxane A2. Now, there are two types of COX. We have COX-1 and COX-2. Yung COX-1, it mediates the production of thromboxane A2, while COX-2 mediates the production of prostacyclin. Aspirin can inhibit both enzymes. So, in essence, mawala yung thromboxane A2. Again, ano ang role ng thromboxane A2? Sabi natin, yung thromboxane A2 is a powerful vasoconstrictor. At the same time, it can lead to the activation of your GP2B3A receptor that will enable the platelet to bind each other in the presence of fibrinogen. That's thus forming or thus causing platelet aggregation. Diba? Yan. Now, aspirin inhibit the cyclooxygenase enzyme in the platelet. Doon yun sa platelet, di ba? Ang COX nasa platelet naman. So, isa yun sa pinanggagalingan ng cyclooxygenase, yung platelet. So, once platelets are released in the circulation, they already have COX. But, remember, platelets do not have nucleus. So, once the COX enzyme is inhibited, platelet can no longer create new enzyme kasi wala na siyang nucleus. Therefore, once inhibited, that platelet would be inhibited throughout its lifetime, which is about 7 to 10 days. So, ano na mangyayari? Wala siyang COX hindi siya magpakaproduce ng thromboxane A2 at dahil doon, hindi siya pwedeng makipag-bonding with other platelets. Hindi siya makakapag-aggregate. So, mananatili siyang soltera. No? Hindi siya pwedeng makidikit sa ibang platelets. Soloist siya. No? Ayan. So, aspirin is both anti-inflammatory and anti-platelet. Now, its anti-platelet dose is lower. About 75 to 150 milligram is enough to completely inhibit cyclooxygenase 1. But the typical anti-inflammatory dose reach up to 650 milligrams 3 times a day. So, yung mataas na dose is not necessary for its anti-platelet activity. Enough na yung 75 to 150 milligrams. Next, we go to phosphodiesterase inhibitors. Remember yung kanyang anti-hypertensive, even drugs for heart failure. You've discussed about phosphodiesterase inhibitors. Di ba sa heart failure, you discuss about bipyridines, milrinone and amrinone. These are phosphodiesterase inhibitors. At ano ang role ng phosphodiesterase inhibitor sa heart failure? Sabi natin, ang phosphodiesterase is the one that degrades your CAMP to AMP or your cyclic GMP to GMP. The smooth muscles of the blood vessels, we have cyclic GMP. Phosphodiesterase can convert the cyclic GMP to GMP. Therefore, inhibiting phosphodiesterase enzyme will prevent the the degradation of your CAMP. So pag mataas ang CAMP sa smooth muscles ng blood vessels, they cause vasodilation. Sa heart naman, you have cyclic AMP. That's the same thing. Phosphodiesterase, the one that converts your CAMP AMP. So pag in-inhibit mo yung phosphodiesterase sa heart, mataas yung CAMP. Pag mataas yung CAMP sa heart, mag-increase yung force ng contraction. Kaya sa heart failure, yung mga phosphodiesterase inhibitors, they are both vasodilator and acts as inotrope. Sa platelet naman, meron ding phosphodiesterase sa platelet. Sa platelet, there are 3 types of phosphodiesterases. We have phosphodiesterase 2, 3, and 5. No? Yan, tatlong yan. And what is the role of phosphodiesterase in the life of a platelet? So, yung phosphodiesterase 1, 2, and 3 hydrolyze both CAMP and CGMP. Phosphodiesterase 4 and 8 hydrolyze CAMP. Phosphodiesterase 5 hydrolyze cyclic GMP. So, sa platelets, meron ka nito, no? Meron ganyan. So, ano sabi natin sa platelet? 2, 3, and 5. O, yan. 2, 3, and 5. Okay, so ito, diniscuss ko na yan. So, dito sa platelet na, no? So, you have here the cyclic AMP and phosphodiesterase will hydrolyze CAMP to AMP. Pero, inhibitor to. So, inhibit mo yung enzyme na to. So, hindi ma-hydrolyze yung CAMP. Pag mataas yung CAMP sa platelet, it prevents platelet aggregation. So, ganun din. Hindi na siya makakapag-bind with other platelets, thus preventing platelet aggregation. So, hindi mabubuo ang platelet plug. Okay? So, an example of phosphodiesterase inhibitor with antiplatelet activity is dipyridamole. Dipyridamole can also act as a vasodilator. Kasi nga phosphodiesterase inhibitor siya. So, dalawa yung effect ng dipyridamole. Okay ha? The action of dipyridamole is inhibition of phosphodiesterase enzyme. And the effect is inhibition of platelet aggregation and vasodilatation. O anong sakit ang pwede mong bigyan ng ganyan? Vasodilator na, nag-inhibit ng platelet aggregation. Saan siya maganda? Isipin mo, angina, maganda siya sa angina, di ba? Angina kasi, nagko-constrict ang vessel, kaya nadidecrease ang blood supply. Tapos, ang isa pa sa pathophysiology niya, lalo na sa angina na unstable angina, is a formation of thrombus. So, kung hindi mo i-activate ang platelet, mape-prevent ang thrombus formation. Maganda, di ba? However, that doesn't come true in real life. Because dipyridamole causes what you call the coronary still phenomenon. Kasi kung iniisip mo na dipyridamole, vasodilator siya ito. So, dapat ma-increase niya yung supply ng blood or flow of blood to the ischemic area of the heart. Pero hindi ganun nangyayari. With dipyridamole, ang nangyayari, yung ibig sabihin ng coronary still phenomenon, it causes generalized vasodilation of the coronary arteries. Ang nangyayari, yung blood flow na da-divert sa already perfused area, na iiwan yung ischemic area. Kaya, lalong nagkakaroon ng MI. Kaya hindi na siya masyadong ginagamit para dyan. Okay? So, it may paradoxically even induce angina in patients who already have coronary artery disease because of this coronary still phenomenon. Yan. Okay? Now, another phosphodiesterase inhibitor is silostazole. Now, dipyridamole is a weak antiplatelet. Silostazole is also an antiplatelet, but it also has a vasodilatory property. Ito naman, ginagamit siya for intermittent claudication. Okay? Ayan. Next group of drug, we have the ADP receptor pathway inhibitors. And we all know activation of the ADP activation of ADP receptor lead to platelet activation. So under this, we have ticlopidine, clopidogrel, prasugrel, and ticagrelor. Ito yung pinakabago. Okay? So this irreversibly block the ADP receptor, thus inhibiting the activation of the platelets. Ticlopidin is a prodrug, so it requires activation in the liver. It has a long half-life, about 8 to 11 days. So it is approved for prevention of thrombotic strokes, and it may be combined with aspirin to prevent stent thrombosis dun sa mga pasyenteng nag-undergo ng coronary artery stenting. However, ticlopidin can cause neutropenia, thrombocytopenia, or thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. Oo, yun ang problema yan. So, kailangan mong i-monitor yung blood count ng pasyente. Now, we have the new clopidogrel. Ito yung mas ginagamit. Baka gumagamit ng magulang niyo yan. Plavix, ang isa sa mga brand name niya. Yun yung pinakaunang brand ng clopidogrel, Plavix. So, it's a thienepyridine that is related to ticlopidin. Just like ticlopidin, it's also a prodrug. So, it is activated by the CYP3A4 enzyme. So, it is used for prevention, secondary prevention in patients who have recently had MI, stroke, or peripheral vascular disease, yung mga merong acute coronary syndrome, yung mga may angina. Adverse effect niya, gastrointestinal, pwedeng sumakit ng sikmura, but not as much as aspirin. And it lacks significant bone marrow toxicity. Ito nga pala with aspirin, no? Although aspirin is very powerful antiplatelet, it is cheap, okay? And it is orally given, no? Ang adverse effect kasi naman ng aspirin is that it's a gastrointestinal upset. Yun yung isa pinaka-common niya, gastrointestinal upset. Because aspirin inhibit COX-1, which is responsible for the synthesis of your cyclooxygenase, which is responsible also for the production of prostaglandin. Kasi yung gastrointestinal tract requires prostaglandin for protection. Prostaglandin offers protective effect in the gastrointestinal tract because it promotes mucus production. And the mucus lining in the stomach and the intestine acts as a barrier against the corrosive effect of acid. Now, if you give aspirin, ang nangyayari, numinipis yung mucus lining ng stomach. So, patient may develop gastritis, no? Pwede silang mag-develop ng ulcer. So, yun yung pinakamalaking drawback ng aspirin. Kaya, yung iba, pag hindi kaya aspirin, pinibigay ng clopidogrel. Ang gastrointestinal niya is very mild. Hindi siya katulad ng aspirin na magkukas ng ulcer, ganyan. Very mild lang. And it lacks significant bone marrow toxicity. But what is more common about clopidogrel is the formation of purpura. Minsan nagkakaroon sila ng mga pasa-pasa. Yan. Then we have the GB2B3A antagonist. Alam na natin, ano ba yung 2B3A? These are receptors on the surface of the platelet that bind with fibrinogen para magkaroon ng platelet aggregation. No? So the GP2B3A antagonist block this receptor, so preventing platelets from binding to fibrinogen. So under this, we have the eptifibatide, which is a highly efficacious inhibitor of platelet aggregation. This is a synthetic peptide. Okay? So inhibiting platelet aggregation will reduce ischemic events in patients who have undergone percutaneous coronary intervention or treat unstable, non-ST elevated myocardial infarction. Then we have abscizimab. Now, abscizimab is a monoclonal antibody. So, again, directed against GP2B and 3A receptor. So, it binds to this receptor irreversibly, hence it has a very long half-life. So, it reduces both the long-term and short-term ischemic events in patients who undergo percutaneous coronary intervention. Lastly, we have tirofiban. Okay? So, bago lang to, approved in patients with coronary artery syndrome. So, same thing, same mechanism. No? So, that's all. We have questions. No? Meron ba kayong question? So, ito lang naman yan. Ano? So anong natin? So, magbigay tayo ng mga review questions. Ay, sinagot ko kaagad. So, yung drug that inhibit platelet response to ADP is clopidogrel. Okay? So, ito, 45-year-old, tinitreat for venous thromboembolism. So, nung binigyan siya ng unfractionated heparin. Yung stool guayak, what is stool guayak? Anong sabi sa inyo sa CD? Ito, it test for blood in the stool. So, nung una daw siyang inadmit, wala pa. Nung binigyan na siya ng unfractionated heparin, ngayon, plus 4 na. So, which means may bleeding siya sa GI. So, alin daw ang which would be best to administer para ma-counteract yung excessive heparin remaining in the circulation that cause the patient's bleeding. So, anong pangontra sa heparin? Sabi natin is protamine. Okay? So, mga ganyan lang yung example ng exam. Napakadali. No? Pwede nga hindi ka mag-aral basta nakinig ka lang. And, syempre hindi. Okay? So, may question ba kayo? Okay. May question? Wala? O napaaga pa yung ating no? Napaaga pa yung ating lecture. Natapos. Wala na kayong tanong. So, i-upload ko to sa Moodle ngayon. Ay, none so far. So, kung wala kayong tanong, ibig sabihin na unawaan yan, ha? Oo. Baka kaya nanonood lang kayo ng Netflix. Joke lang. Sige, bahala kayo. Okay lang ako. Now, if you don't have any more question, we'll end at 10 o'clock. Alright? Pero, how about po yung post-quiz? Kasi nga nung Monday, hindi ako nakapag-lecture gawa ng sobrang hirap ng internet connection. Katulad ngayon, hindi kami nakaabot. Dahil doon, yung Monday section ko ay uploadan ko na lang ng live lecture. Okay? Dahil doon, sabay-sabay na lang yung quizzes natin. Friday. Home quiz yan. Monday na ang submission. Alright? Lalagay ko naman doon yung submission. Alright? Dahil dyan, pwede na tayong mag-close. Magsasara ng... hindi ko pa i-close. Do not end. Do not leave. Ako na bahala mag-end nitong session natin. Alright? Thank you. So, should you have any more questions, so we can discuss that probably sa ating lab classes.